Okay, Village Concerns is an East Tothley and Halland action group, formed in response to proposals for almost 450 new homes in the parish. Village Concerns seeks to protect the character and ambience of the parish. It endeavours to ensure that development in the parish is sustainable. Its aim is to monitor housing proposals and galvanise the community to either endorse beneficial developments or challenge those that are unsustainable. Slide, please. The parish includes the villages of East Tothley and Halland, as well as the smaller hamlets such as Barham, Davistown and Greywood. East Tothley has a history dating back to the 12th century and has evolved gradually as a rural agricultural community. Halland was originally a collection of farms known as the nursery, and the blue line shows how the parish was extended to the west in the 1990s to include the whole of Halland. The construction of the A22 bypass moved traffic away from the centre of East Tothley in 1993 and restored some tranquillity to the village. Slide, please. The parish is essentially a rural environment that is bisected by the routes of the A22 and the B2192. Farmland is liberally scattered with woodland, much of which is designated ancient woodland, and many miles of hedgerows, over 50% of which are recorded as species rich. There are many large woods, but also very important gill and shore woodlands that are in particular need of protection. The parish is home to a range of listed buildings and the conservation area that encompasses the attractive and unspoiled core of East Tothley. There are a range of architectural styles and a significant number of Georgian and Victorian buildings. East Tothley has wonderful green approaches. 3 roads entering the village do so with green verges and are generally tree-lined, with open vistas across pasture and into woodland, and this is particularly so on the London Road. The area has a large number of ponds and waterways. The larger ones are shown here, but almost 100 additional smaller ones exist, but too small to go on. They all drain from the high ground, slide please, shown here in pink and beige, towards Old Wiley and Moat Wood, and then north and south towards the rivers. This provides habitat for a significant population of great crested newts. This is in addition to the huge amount of important flora and fauna recorded in the parish. Croom Cottage Meadow is a protected wildlife meadow containing many important and rare species. There is virtually no street lighting in the parish. Whilst this is a cause of concern for some parishioners, it's seen as a huge benefit by others. It allows a generally dark night sky to predominate, allowing fabulous star viewing and also an uninhibited dark environment for nocturnal animals. Our view is that development should be fitted around biodiversity, that nature should be enhanced rather than diminished or relocated. Slide, please. East Tothley is currently defined by Wealden as a large village type 2 and a sustainable settlement. Village Concerns contest this definition and believes it should be challenged. Wealden states that the village has very good local facilities, which is not true. The draft local plan defines a very constrained development boundary for East Tothley, that's shown in red, and the conservation area in purple, with a housing allocation of 0. Therefore, there are no current sites in East Tothley that can be considered for housing developments. Slide, please. Halland has evolved in a linear fashion along the surrounding roads and lacks its own facilities and a cohesive centre. Halland is currently defined in Wealden's development hierarchy as a local settlement and as an unsustainable settlement, with local to very limited facilities. Halland has a defined core area rather than a development boundary. The core area is constrained, yet Halland has been allocated 30 houses in the draft local plan. It's difficult to see where these houses could be allocated. Slide, please. It's vital that the village atmosphere is retained for East Tothley and improved for Halland. They are desirable places to live because they have grown gradually and out of the needs of local people to live in this place. To put housing in place beyond the need of the local community creates a dormitory that has no connection with the villages and, more importantly, creates traffic as they pursue their lives in other places for employment, shops, schools and leisure. This chart shows how the potential developments would increase the housing in the parish. Slide this. It took 168 years for the village of East Hoathly to grow from 55 to 286 homes by 2008. In 2009, 76 new homes were built in the Jusier and Nightingales developments. This chart shows how disproportionate this development was and how damaging the proposed Hesmonds and other local developments would be to the natural growth of East Hoathly. Most of the housing additions to the parish since the 1960s have been on brownfield sites. Building on brownfield sites takes employment away from the parish whilst adding more residents in need of employment. The result is increased traffic onto the A22 and Ashdown Forest, and an unbalanced community. The loss of further businesses and farmland in favour of housing would further exacerbate this. Many of the current businesses in the parish are run from people's homes. The parish needs better broadband to allow this modern business practice to operate effectively. Housing that accommodates this business model would be useful. Village Concerns would strongly support some form of community land trust and/or a co-housing project to provide rented accommodation that is affordable for local people. Village Concerns would also support some of this housing to be a self-build project. The parish is not crime-free and has occasionally suffered examples of antisocial behaviour. However, most people, most of the time, have a good sense of security in the community. They manage adequately with the unlit streets and look after each other. This must be nurtured and not jeopardised by large developments. This summarises the infrastructure problems that the parish faces. Wealden's budget to improve this infrastructure is effectively bankrupt. In 2015, they identified a funding gap of £73 million. This does not appear to have been updated, so the current position is probably even worse. East Hoathly does not even appear in the list for these infrastructure developments from Wealden's bankrupt budget. The parish is rural and dependent on vehicles, which increase in number every year. Car parking is limited and needs improving. Much existing housing does not have off-road car parking, and new developments often lack sufficient parking. This forces parking onto the roads throughout the village. And it's become common practice to park around the junction at the centre of the village. This causes regular traffic hold-ups, particularly when large vehicles try to manoeuvre around the junction. Many residents are concerned about traffic speeds generally in the village, and specifically at this junction. Our preferred solution is to reduce the speed of vehicles to a safe level. The use of our network of footpaths and bridleways is a significant factor in attracting tourism. Our positioning on the Weald Way, the Vanguard Way, and the historic Thomas Turner walks adds significantly to the popularity, and every effort should be made to retain these green lanes and not to urbanise them. Many people feel that there should be a clearly delineated footpath connecting the two villages and possibly a cycle route. One more. When development does take place, it should be compatible with the existing housing, using traditional styles and a variety of design that gives the impression of a gradual evolution and not a block of identical houses. And I conclude by saying that Village Concerns is not against development, but that it should be to meet the needs of the community and not to destroy it. Thank you.
answer, Jonathan. Thank you. This last slide, this is just giving the name of this development.
It's Lavender Fields.
Lavender Fields, and we went there earlier in our project. Is this the sort of architecture that you, as residents, and looking at Catherine here, who pulled up, riding up on those, is this? How did this go down when you saw it actually appear on site?
Well, closer, but for me not as close as.
Okay, right. So we can see that and maybe pick the best bits of it. And yeah, so your opening slide was positive, you know, what was the support for appropriate development, okay? So, you know, the village concerns are saying that where it's in the right place and of the right quality, they need to do that. And about affordability of housing and keeping the village alive where young people will find somewhere to live and so on. So it's the scale that seems to be, or the speed and scale, and maybe the locations that of course concerned previously.
You started at the beginning by citing the 2013 position on the Wheeldon's categorisation
strategy, yeah.
So that's the currently adopted plan, but the developing plans,
exactly,
which have planning weight, completely rewrote that.
Well, the developing one's still draft, and it's options and issues.
That still has planning weight, though.
Not particularly. Not with regard to your neighbourhood plan.
Yeah, right.
Your neighbourhood plan can disregard the emerging one. You only need to think about the adopted one. But this emerging Wheeldon one will gradually get one.
But the point being that when they allocated the Jussier development, the parish was told that there would be no further development in the default going future. So to then propose new developments completely flies in the face of that. So yes, we're in favour of small development, but we've got many years to go before we get used to the influx of that 76 homes.
Yeah.
So there's not like, if we say we support limited development, that we want it next year. We've had our fair share for probably a decade until that new bit of the community is fully absorbed.
I think this is touching on a really important point, is that the planning system, Wheeldon District Council, other borough councils, the guidance from the central government is changing all the time. The new MPPF came out on Monday. So what may have been their position in a previous local plan, or a previous point in the local plan, will shift. And where we've been working in Liphook, where Charlie's been working as well, the East Hampshire District Council said the goalposts are moving all the time for district and borough councils in terms of what they are being asked to deliver and achieve. So I do sympathise that you told one thing and you said, well, this will be it for the foreseeable, and then the next time we'll say, well, we've got to think again now. So we do have to keep moving with this. So, and I think this graph was, you know, visually very striking. But this is, you know, there is an exponent, more than that. It's a very, this is the sort of what we need to deal with. So how do we deal with that as a group? And these aren't easy things. So.
That's out of date based on some of the documents at the back, which have added additional proposals from developers, which will go on top. That figures, that underestimates what I've seen at the back. There's new ones on there.
But my point is that the things at the back would fit into this category, which is
yeah, potential. Yeah.
So one of the, just to, you know, to sort of throw it out there, if some of these smaller sites of the type that ride into, well, not that site in particular necessarily, but these smaller ones that maybe are over the next couple of days, you know, if your neighbourhood plan can get behind some of those, it will support the position that you can start to be very tough and reject others. Because if your neighbourhood plan demonstrates to an examiner that it is supporting sustainable development by supporting particular sites in particular ways, it gives you an enormous amount of weight to rebuff and reject others. So that's something to think about. You don't have to make choices over the next 2 days, but you'll be in a much stronger position with a plan that accepts the bits you want, rather than saying we can't do it at all. So that's something we need to try and resolve. Any further, hey, we can turn this around. Developers, do you want to give Jonathan a couple of hard questions?
Can you just clarify, was it on top of the graph, the extra one you've seen, or included in the orange?
This was what Jonathan knew about as potentially already, but since you've seen extras this morning, that orange bit may get bigger.
Yeah.
Is well, that's how I understood it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have a tough few days ahead. Thank you very much, Jonathan. We'll see you.